Greetings, greetings. Welcome, seekers of the truth and those who tread the pathless path. This is Legion of Lilith, and tonight I am most honored to present Thomas LeRoy and his beautiful wife, Lisa Corinne, from the sect of the Horn God. How are you guys doing tonight?
Excellent.
Yeah,
Thanks
we're
for having
doing
us.
good. Yeah, thank you.
I am so honored to get you on here. We also have my lovely co-host, Sorsha Runarius. Sorsha, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much.
Good, good. So I will get the sort of stock question out of the way. This is not very stock, but Thomas, when did you realize in your life, and how did it change your lifestyle when you first knew that our beautiful horned God is the Lord of this earth, or at least a partial architect of this 3D construct?
Wow. That's a big one. Okay, like a lot of people, I was a rebellious teenager who, after leaving the church, decided to go find something new to fill that void, if you will. And most of what I found, I felt was complete nonsense. It was silly. It was, moo wearing hippies dancing around in circles. It wasn't my thing. And like a lot of people, I discovered the Satanic Bible. Now, I'm a San Francisco native, so Anton LaVey was an institution in the Bay Area. Everybody knew who he was. And it didn't matter what bookstore you went to, his book was there, and a lot of times in the religious section, surprisingly. This was way back when. And also as a child, many, many times I had gone past his house, the Black House, because this foster home that I lived in, the foster mother used to like to shop on, I think it was a Sears store or something like that, on California Street or just off California. And that was where the Black House was. So often we'd pass by it, and most of the time she would clutch the steering wheel and her knuckles would turn white. And one time she goes, Tommy, an evil man lives in that house. And I thought, intriguing. I got to learn more about this evil man. So, late teens, I picked up the Satanic Bible. Besides that, I'm also a huge history buff. I'm obsessed with his history, especially ancient history. And because of that, I was somewhat drawn toward paganism, but not, like I said, the moo clad wearing type, you know what I mean? The soft paganism. I couldn't deal with that shit. And also being mostly of Celtic heritage, I got into Druidism. And I quickly discovered that modern Druidism, to quote the title of one of my videos, is bullshit. It was created in the late 18th century in Britain when they were going through their Celtic revival period. It's a lot of white-clad people marching around Stonehenge on the solstice and the equinoxes and so on and so forth, mumbling nonsense. And then later on, it got a really strong hippie vibe during the 60s. And just like I said, being the history buff that I am, I wanted a form of Druidism that was more like the way it should be, or at least the way I think it should be. Nature is neither good nor bad. You know what I mean? There's none of that Christian duality shit going on in nature. And if you are a truly nature-loving pagan, let's say, you got to accept the dark side. You really do. Otherwise, you're leaving out half. half of basically of who you are, you know, the shadow side, if you will. In the ancient pagans, all what we know of the ancient pagan faiths, those gods were like human beings. They weren't like Yahweh or well, Yahweh's kind of a dick, but they weren't like Jesus. Let's put it that way. You know, pure and good and so on and so forth. Like an example, Odin, one of my favorite gods. Odin was a very, very dark god. He did some really fucked up shit to achieve what he wanted, and that was gnosis above anything else. He was willing to lie, cheat, steal, kill, you name it. But in I think it was the 13th century, Snorri Sturluson, an Icelander, wrote down a lot of the early Norse tales, mythological tales in the Prose Edda and the Poetic Edda. And what he did is he turned Odin into sort of a Norse Yahweh. You know what I mean? Because he was a Christian. But we should be thankful that he at least documented these myths and so on. But anyway, and that's how a lot of people nowadays see paganism, as there's a light half and there's a dark half and so on and so forth. And because of that, I felt it was important to inject the dark half back into it. You know what I mean? Because we're living in a society where there is that stark duality between the two. Hence, individuals lack wholeness. So, and also, well, we had, how the sect started, the organization. We were caretakers on a winery in Northern California, just outside the Napa Valley, which unfortunately burned down in one of the many fires we've had here in California.
We lived on that property for several years.
We owned a bookstore and so on and so forth. But anyway, we put on events. We put on a pagan festival. And
it's painful.
Well, it was fun. Most of the people were really cool, actually. Even though, you know, they were kind of fluffy bunny types. But still, you know, they were pretty cool. And it wasn't long after that I was thinking, we need to give the horn god back his testicles, because their interpretation of the horn god was, let's say, the goddess's boy toy. You know what I mean? He wasn't that, he lacked an edge. Let's put it that way. So on November 1st, 2011, we started the organization to basically to give the horn god back his testicles, if you will.
Fantastic. For a little bit of context for the audience, Thomas and Lisa are the founders of an occult Black Lodge university, if you will, the sect of the Horned God. If you guys want to check, well, we'll give all that information in the description. But just to give a quick disclaimer, Thomas, Lisa, or Sorsha, or myself cannot be held responsible for any information that is misinterpreted during this interview. It is the audience's responsibility to know what you are consuming. So, Lisa, same question, if you will. Or was it this, like, is your journey with Thomas so intertwined that it was like the same for both of you?
In many ways it was, and of course there were differences. I was born into an Icelandic fishing village in Canada.
Okay.
And it's well known, worldwide of my ancestors going there, and my mom was raised Icelandic as her first language, and I was raised pagan in that particular culture. And in Canada, that was illegal. So I was taught not to talk about it, but I really didn't know why. It's just
Yeah, they don't have First Amendment. Okay.
Yeah.
So
And so I don't know how it. So I raised my daughter pagan also, and she's doing the same thing with her children. But I wasn't satisfied anymore with it. I felt, and I've said this before, I mean, obviously I wasn't raised a Christian, but the pagan tradition also worshipped a god, right? So for me, it was just ended up being a lateral move after several years. Like, it didn't make sense to me to continue with it when I didn't like how it was put together, right? Not to say that I didn't meet a lot of amazing people that I did, but I needed something more for myself. And, you know, and you know, as a teenager, I read, you know, the Anton's book and the Satanic Bible. And then I discovered goth.
back then it wasn't called God.
No, it wasn't called goth back
Really have a
then.
name, but-
What, like Death Rock or whatever? Sisters of Mercy,
Yeah.
Christian Death.
But
So on.
I'd already been wearing a lot of black for years before that, simply because it was a comfort level. And that's all it was. Just that's how I was comfortable. And I mean, it wasn't popular. It wasn't really known. So I walked a lot of back lanes instead of on the streets, right? Because I would get teased. But how the sect is structured was something that Thomas and I had a lot in common. We actually
we met online.
We met
actually.
online, yeah.
And we weren't looking for.
No, we were the happiest singles. But hell,
when it works, it works.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And so we started off with phone conversations, of course, and then I was a nurse, ER trauma nurse for many years, and so I was able to easily fly back and forth. I would just trade my shifts around and you know, go away for a week or take vacation for a couple of weeks and go and stay with Tom. So Thomas, that's why how you'd been talking about it, and then we sort of.
It's been in the back of something like the sect's been in the back of my mind for a lot of years.
Yeah.
Over 20 years.
Yeah.
So.
But we didn't want it to be the same bullshit that's on the internet, you know, where there's a lot of adversarial stuff going on. You can't, you know, all they want to do is fight with you.
Yeah, Satanism online, especially
Yeah.
about 10 years ago, it was
Yeah.
a real pain in the ass. People were saying shit like Satan means adversary, so I'm adversarial.
Yeah.
And it wasn't allowing people to, like newbies, to get in there and ask questions and so on and so
Yeah.
forth. And that's another reason why we started the organization. We wanted to, you know, bring people in, introduce them to who they are, in a sense, because a lot of people are on the path but don't know how to progress down it, or don't realize that they're already on it.
Yeah.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and so we structured our courses for the individual to gain knowledge and investigate themselves. It's, you know, it's based on well, Anton's philosophy. Who else?
Yeah, we
Joe
get into mythology, psychology,
yeah.
philosophy. We encompass it all. And then later on, as you work your way up through the different orders, as we call them, instead of courses, you get up into higher orders. And then the highest order, then you get into the working. That's when you get into the M word, if you know what I mean. So otherwise, we kind of feel that if you start off by bringing up, let's say, magic and stuff like that, that kind of screws with people's heads.
Right.
People have a distinct idea of what it is. It's either, you know, you're like David Copperfield, Penn and Teller, or, you know, you're Harry Potter. and there's more to it than either of those extremes, and that's what we're trying to get across to people. There's a deeper psychological aspect to it.
It's a fully mechanized initiatic grade system, something like a Masonic order, but without the pretense, like, hey, we do worship the horn god, but you got to get to the 33rd level before you realize that you are worshiping Lucifer. You are worshiping the perfect red king in the Masons. But so you're just letting go all the pretenses, and you're mixing it with Hindu spirituality as well, which is awesome.
Exactly.
Fantastic.
Very much so.
No, I was curious, in your order system, I know that, of course, each aspirant coming to potentially join, what kind of I guess an instruction format do you use? I mean, do you have like recorded videos or course material? I'm sure probably recommended reading. I mean, do people meet with your instructors on a regular basis? If you don't mind sharing kind of how it's set up a little bit.
It's pretty much all of the above. The meetups, I guess you say, we do like, something like this with individuals. That'll be up in the highest order. But early on, it's courses, I guess you could say, suggested reading videos, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And also what we do, not everyone, lately we've been getting quite a few people who were Temple of Set members, which we like because we have tons of respect for the Temple of Set. And those people, we're not going to put them through the basics, you know what I mean? Because they already know their shit.
Right.
So we'll restructure the orders, so that it better, it doesn't insult their intelligence, if you will. But most of the people who join are actually brand new. A whole lot of people. So our first order is called the Order of Pan. And the Order of Pan is let's say, basic Satanism and understanding what Satanism is. All right. And then our second order is the Order of Kernanos, which is a history of the occult and understanding the past, which is very, very important. And then the third order is the Order of Prometheus. Now, Prometheus technically, of course, isn't a horn god, but that's to do with critical thinking, because we don't want Kool-Aid drinkers in our organization. You know what I mean? We don't want people just joining for the sake of joining and just blindly accepting.
Yeah.
We want people to be able to think critically.
Yeah.
And then we take a left turn, if you will, in the next order, which is the Order of Dionysius. And then we start getting into the, how should we put it? The deeper Jungian psychology, mythology of Joseph Campbell, so on and so forth. We get into the deep stuff there. And then then once they go through these lower orders, or we also have another order we just started too, is the Order of Eblis.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's for people who've been around for a little bit, people who didn't do the Order of Pan. You know what I mean? So we'll give them the Order of Eblis. It's something a little different. And then our final order is the Order of Shiva. And the reason why Shiva is at the top is, if you think about it, if you go down the list, Satan, Lucifer, so on and so forth, they're not technically gods. Shiva is a god. And Shiva is the greatest of all the left-hand path gods. Now, Shiva isn't always interpreted from a left-hand path perspective. By most people, he's not. They come to him through the right-hand path. But those who do go to Shiva through the left-hand path are, without a doubt, the most extreme practitioners of the path. The shit these people do. If you're aware of the Agori, for instance.
Yeah.
So I thought, might as well put him at the top. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And And a lot of what we have, see, I look, okay, Western civilization here in the States or whatever, we don't live as extremely as they do in India. Yeah. That's a more extreme society. So for them to reach that gnosis, if you will, that self-deification, they got to go through some extremes to get there.
Yeah. To go down to a cremation pyre and spread ash all over yourself and kind of eat some of the flesh that is rotting, smell it, sit with the dead bodies. Like, yeah, these are extreme practices for sure.
Exactly.
It's intense and primal. I mean, it hits on all of the, facing directly all of just these, the darker things that most people would want to hush away and, whitewash. We tend to hide death away and keep it in its own little container, but they are just...
They rub it on their body. They eat it.
Their objective is, okay, you've heard about people who okay, they find out they're dying. They have a terminal disease. All right, and then they go through the stages. And they get to that final stage where they have pure acceptance. They have acceptance of reality, of existence. And they only have it for maybe a few short weeks or months or whatever before they finally die. What the Agori are trying to achieve is that sensation, that form of enlightenment, if you will, long before they depart this mortal coil, if you will. Mm. So, and I find that highly intriguing. That to me, because a lot of people bring up, you hear like, especially the quasi bullshit guru types. Some of the gurus I like, but you know what I mean, the TV, almost evangelical like gurus.
Right.
They'll talk about enlightenment. Ooh, you're gonna be, we're gonna help bring you to enlightenment and all this crap. It's like a carrot on a stick. They don't tell you exactly what that is. You know what I mean? It's a lot of not, they don't tell you because they don't want you, well, they don't know themselves to begin with. They don't have a definition. And like I said, they want to continue that carrot on the stick because the longer they have you hooked or whatever, the longer they can play with you, the more money they can make and so on and so forth. But by having a definition that you can understand, what you can call it sinister illumination, form of enlightenment. If you know it's that sensation, like I talked about, is that full acceptance of existence. That is what you want. That is the definition, I think, more than anything else, of where this path leads.
Mm. If we don't tell them what to think at all, not what to think.
They just give them tools on how to,
and create their own way.
This is incredibly useful for people that, like Sorsha and myself, we are starting our own, sort of like the sect of the Horn God, but a little bit different. So this is very practical, useful information. So Thomas, can you recollect a specific time in your life where you've witnessed a manifestation of the infernal divine?
Yes. And I'm by nature a very skeptical person. And I think that's healthy. So that way you can't be swayed into bullshit. I had, back in 2015, I was sick with a fever and I had this incredible dream. Our dog's making noise. This being came to me in this dream. Now I've done videos on this, and in my dream, I'm sitting there, I'm watching a large television set, and on the screen is this being that is basically, it's wearing a gray cloak robe, and out of where the neck hole would be was a wrist. And at the end of the wrist was a claw-like hand. And in that hand was a head, an androgynous head with the eyes closed, mouth closed. And it was standing in the back of a cart pulled by numerous, maybe half a dozen dead goats that were reanimated. And on the screen came the words Soter, S-O-T-E-R. Now, supposedly, you're not supposed to be able to see letters. Most people can't. Some people can't in your dreams. But I saw that distinctly. And when I was coming out of my dream, I was saying the word Soter. Now, this thing seemed very, very familiar to me. Now, I had had dreams of something in a shadow that looked vaguely like that over and over and over, multiple times, standing at the end of my bed. I've woken up and I've looked and it was gone. But I figured, okay, I dreamt it. But this was a reoccurring dream. Anyway, a couple of weeks after I had that dream, I was watching a video on Dionysius. And this woman who had written a book about him referred to him as Soter.
Wow.
Soter is the ancient Greek word for savior.
Wow.
Now, over the years, Soter has returned to me. I do yogic meditation, deep breathing exercises, so on. And I've had Soter come to me in this state. And like I said, I am the doubting Thomas. My name is perfect for the person I am. I question everything. But this was a revelation for me. And this actually changed the direction of our organization in a lot of ways. We were more of a structured sort of quasi-atheistic organization. But it was from that point on that it was like, it's not about atheism, it's not about theism, it's about what you get out of this practice. You know, because neither one, I'm sick of that. I'm so tired of that argument too. It bugs the hell out of me. It's some people feel the need to believe in a deity of some sort. You know what I mean? That is there, that is concrete. Others don't need that. You know, others can see it as metaphorical or whatever. To me, it doesn't matter. It's what you get out of it, where you are going on the path, and is it leading you to that end goal. But anyway, getting back to it, that had the biggest impact on me on this path so far. Because of that, we started what was called within the organization called the Sigil Project. And what we did is we got individuals to try to discover who their daemon, or as we call it, your unholy guardian demon, who that is. And we get people to think, meditate, go deep, find what that is, describe it in one word. We convert that word from English into Latin or Greek or Enochian. We create a sigil from that word. And then also we get the person to describe, what does that entity look like? And we create an illustration. Our art director, he's a Belgian artist named Anton Wolf. He'll create first off, the Dark Fool, our master of rituals, he'll create the sigil. He'll give that sigil to Anton Wolf. Anton Wolf will finalize it, give it nice structure, made it look really good, and he'll draw out what that entity looks like. And then we'll present it to the individuals. And a lot of people have found this very cathartic.
And emotional too.
Very emotional.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really helped out a lot of people. And like I was saying, that kind of changed the organization in a lot of ways. Starting with that, my own personal revelation, if you will.
Lisa, same question.
You're going to sister?
Oh, well, have you had that revelation? You know what I mean? That notice, that's something that kicked you in the head, and it's hard to explain from a rational perspective.
Well, that kind of did, that situation. But I had a sister, she's a year younger than me, who was a very violent schizophrenic. She was she was one of the known as the worst in the province I'm from in Canada. You know, she killed our dogs, every pet we had, or beat them to, you know, nothing, hung the cats. And as she grew up, this was when she was a kid.
Wow.
You know, it started then in on my parents. You know, she was having, you know, bikers come over with bats to break my mom's legs if she didn't get money and stuff like that. And when I moved to California and you know, and Thomas and I got married, I was always afraid. I always had nightmares about her because I was afraid of the concern for the harm she could and would do, you know, if she had a chance. And so she was the one that was my demon during this project, right?
In Lisa's case, this was in the flesh. It wasn't, you know, a daemon, if you will.
Yeah.
You actually had one in the flesh that also affected you so deeply.
Yeah.
It scarred your soul.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So 4 or 5 years ago, she died. And my sister called me to tell me the news, and I started to cry, right? And it was because I was relieved. I was happy she was gone. People, you know, my parents were going to be safe now. My children, you know, they're adults, but you know, you never knew who she was going to go after next.
Right.
And so, I finally was able to sleep without having nightmares. But then I realized also I had used her as my demon, but really the demon is the one that I see in the mirror, and that's myself, because I allow things to hit me really hard rather than just having nightmares. I wasn't dealing with it properly either, right? So I thought I'm my own demon. I choose how I live my life and the path I'm on. I got to smarten up here, you know. Look into the mirror and see my own dark side and address that.
Well, that's where black magic is a useful tool, because a person like that, you have to bind them, you have to curse them, you have to really take that to the altar and let that go, and let the universe deal with it, with your waveform creation and your programming. I mean, it handled itself regardless, but you are not the one at fault there at all.
Yeah, no, I realize that. I just, I don't know. I guess because of when mental health wasn't recognized really at all. So she never had help when we were kids, you know. And so things just continued and but yeah, for me it was I had to look at myself now too, you know, more deeper level. I actually felt I had some control back, you know.
Right.
But
yeah, she was certainly a manifestation of something demonic, not in a good way either.
Yeah. What was that episode outside of Winnipeg with the Greyhound bus?
Oh, right. There was back in.
You may have heard of it.
Back in maybe about 15 years ago, a Greyhound bus outside of Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, Winnipeg, where Lisa grew up. An individual named Vince Lee had stabbed the guy sitting next to him, kept stabbing him, and then finally beheaded him, tore off some of his body parts, began to eat him, so on and so forth. Of course, the bus had stopped by that time.
Like just trucking down the road.
Yeah. Everybody else got off. He like showed off the head to people, you know, so on and so forth. Finally, that news got out, and now go ahead.
I was supposed to be going to work. I was taking the evening shift to go into the night shift, and I had to call in because I was convinced that it was her. I was
not
absolutely
knowing who it
not
was.
knowing who it was at that point, because she's
I could see that.
capable of that, right? So I just canceled. I said, can't come in, right? But thankfully it wasn't her. But that certainly, and he, that guy actually, he was in the same forensic psychiatric hospital that my sister was in. And he was released after 5 years, I think.
It was a little more than that, but yeah,
Was
he's
it, or
out
10
now.
years? Yeah, he's on the street.
He's lucky he didn't do that in Texas.
Yeah.
You
No,
know?
we'd be death
Yeah,
sentence,
Sorsha,
capital
yeah.
offense in Texas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Thomas, as a leader in the community and founder of a prominent occult order, have you gotten any backlash by JCI fanatics?
I'm always getting shit on my videos. People, I remember one time a Muslim guy threatened to kill me and rape Lisa. I'm always getting shit. Most of the time I don't care. I just let it roll up from my back.
Yeah. And at the same time, we have members that are from countries that if they knew, the families knew, or the government knew, they would be killed.
They have to use special servers. Muslim countries, actually, we have some members in Muslim countries. Egypt, I know, is one of them, and they have to be very, very careful that they're members. Now, we have certificates and so on and so forth that we send people when they join, and there's no way we're going to send that to them.
Yeah.
They request that no mail comes.
Yeah, and they have to use, like we're saying, they have to use special servers somehow.
Yeah.
They like piggyback onto, I don't know.
VPNs.
It's not protected. Yeah, I don't know how it works. I'm not a tech person, but yeah. So yeah, you anytime you do something like this, you're going to get shit from people. But the important thing is to cover your ass in the respect that we don't allow anyone who's under 18 to join. They go through an extensive questionnaire and follow-up. Besides this questionnaire, we also have a follow-up.
Which is even more extensive.
And we ask them stuff like, have you been found guilty of a felony, and so on. Some have, most of course haven't.
Yeah.
We want to avoid anyone with any connection to child abuse or any of that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So we're very careful.
And also we have, like you said at the beginning, a rider in there that we are not responsible for any sort of mental illness that you accuse us of, or violence,
Right.
Things like that, where they might put the blame on us because we screwed with their heads,
The devil made me do it type of shit. Yeah.
So I think that's a really important one too, for you guys to, we do it. Thank goodness.
Yeah, you definitely want to cover your ass.
Yeah.
So is there any specific rites or rituals that you've written or performed that above any other method has put you in alignment and resonance with the divine? Like some people swear by the Bornless ritual. Some people swear by Black Mass. Like,
we more or less encourage the personal rituals. People come up with their own. You know what I mean? And try to commune with that daemon, like we were talking about. It isn't well within the higher orders. We have rituals and so on and so forth. The working, if you will, as people pass through what we call the different gates, working their way up. There isn't a specific one, I guess you could say. It's more of the individual has theirs. They create theirs. That's what we encourage. Everyone's different. Everyone has their own, let's say, deity or demon or daemon or whatever they want to connect with.
What about you, Lisa? Is there any rite or ritual that you've performed that really got you to that state of consciousness that you were in full alignment with your higher self or the divine?
Not that I can remember.
It's cool.
Well, it's so ingrained in me that I don't necessarily. It's not that I'm not aware. It's just what I do. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like I can go into another world when I'm gardening, right?
Totally get it.
Thomas can attest to, and there was a time before we had neighbors where I would put on my black gardening ball gown and take a glass of red wine, right?
Yeah, on the winery.
She'd
have like a boulder under one hand and a glass of wine in the other.
That's the Scandinavian in me.
You guys worked at and were on a vineyard. That's very Canaanite, like in the traditions of let's say sabbatic witchcraft with Cain, the first murderer. All in that current has to do with the groves and the vineyards and wine gardens. So yeah, that's
Dionysius. It's you can't get much more Dionysian than that.
Totally.
Yeah.
One of my patrons, Belial, had put me in contact with one of the fallen watcher angels, Shem Hazael, and this angel kept tutoring me on the virtues of botany and planting different herbs, pulling them up, placing them on sigils, and burning them while chanting specific sounds. So that's that specific fallen watcher angel is like Lisa was talking about. It was all about the virtues of gardening and botany, and that's a whole another state of enlightenment, if you will, for sure. So I agree with that for sure. Do you find that modern ceremonial magic is missing the point compared to the theurgical practices of antiquity? Now, what I mean by that is in antiquity, they would, instead of reading the scriptures, they would reenact it, like say the war in heaven. The aspirants would put on the armor, invoke Lucifer, really do the proclamations and reenact the battle scenes. Like this is how they did their ceremonies and rites. It was that's how they the gods came to life, and they got to see through the gods' eyes through reenacting those rituals. You really get to the heart of the mystery. Today in modern ceremonial magic, do you feel like we're missing the point by not adding stuff like that?
That's a very good point. We're actually in a few weeks, we're going to go off camping, and we're going to do a very dark pagan ritual. We're getting together our campsite, our outfits, and you name it. We're going way back. My Druidic roots, her Norse, I could say Seder roots.
Awesome.
Yeah, we're gonna get into it. And another point too, you're talking about the modern and the ancient. Mm-hmm. For the ancients, it was every day. It was their existence. Like talking about the Norse, for instance, you didn't go to a church to pray to Odin. Odin was everywhere. It was all part of your existence. Like we were talking about the gardening aspect and so on and so forth. The gods and demons, the gods, monsters, angels, and demons are there at all times. That's the way it was. There was no difference between, us here and them, and they were all around. It was like the weather. You know what I mean? It was all just part of existence. And that's what we try to get across in the organization. Now, unfortunately, we live in a very rational society. So we need to sometimes, bring about theater you know, to really to get in touch, if you will. But hopefully we can someday get back to that, where it's just there. You know, it is always there. You're always communing, you know, in one way or another.
Oh, definitely.
I can recall. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I don't
I
mean
wasn't
to.
sure what I was going to say. I just had the first like 3 words come to my head, and then where are you going to go from there? You know.
I can recall a specific rite where I was invoking Belial, and it was the spirit came over me, took over me. I always set up chairs. For some reason, I'm compelled to set up chairs around where I'm doing this. And I was by myself, and Belial took over me, and he started making proclamation of law and jurisprudence. And then I was possessed at this point. And then I sat down at the table and started negotiating with territories, seemingly with an archangel. And then I went around the table and I would negotiate as the archangel. And when this was all said and done, I was like, fuck. Like I just played like the whole rebel angels versus the Empyrean angels, and arguing in some type of higher Empyrean court by myself. Like pretty crazy, but yeah, that's what I'm talking about. The essence of like, it's almost like you're play acting, but the spirit is taking you through a scene to make you privy to the mysteries of the specific current that you're enmeshed in. I'm sorry, Sorsha.
I have a
hogging
question.
all the questions.
No, I just, I was thinking, okay, when, we kind of tune into the community and see what people are chattering about, and everybody's been kind of, feeling different levels of, periods of, momentum, and then pulling back and reflecting. But overall, I feel like socially, I mean, both in the magical and the mainstream, there's a lot more people kind of waking up to a lot of things, letting go of some of the dogma. It seems like we're going to have a lot of, there's always going to be mainstream thought and like the Judeo-Christian, systems kind of trying to run the show. But do you think that if, occultists on any path, all paths, feel like, we have a right to take up space in this world, we have a right to practice, without harassment from others, do you think that it would be beneficial if enough people were to place themselves in key positions of power in our society, in the mainstream, to be able to kind of shift that balance a bit more to where it could be more equitable for people? I mean, I know that, when you look at some of these conspiracy channels and they talk about, satanic overlords, and a lot of times they come across as like the satanic panic of the 80s, where, oh, it's Satanists running the show. Well, okay, there could be Satanists running the show, but not the way that they're afraid of. We're not going out and bathing in the blood of infants and none of that. That's the stereotypical Hollywood bullshit that's been out there for years. But if you have, rational occultists, rational people coming forward, being able to operate from a paradigm of their understanding in key parts of society, whether it's, running for office. I know that getting the support, if you're openly Satanist or open occultist, could be a little more tricky. But do you think that with enough momentum, it would be beneficial to try to do so?
There's a side of me that wants to say yes. That's what I would love to have that. But then I would be afraid that if it becomes too acceptable, it's going to lose something. An example would be back in the day, there was punk rock, which was deviant and different and outrageous. And then you had new wave, you know what I mean? And I'm afraid that might happen to the occult. Too much acceptance, it'll lose that edge. And the left-hand path specifically, I think should always stay in the dark, because it is the heterodox, it is the unorthodox, it is the transgressive, and I would be afraid that it might lose its edge.
And I guess to follow up with that, then, if the intent, then if it would be more beneficial to kind of stay more in the shadows. I mean, there'll always be people out here publicly offering services and doing things and having orders and instruction. But how do you feel about the idea of, you know, creating autonomous sovereign society, or network or collective of, practitioners? I mean, everybody kind of has their own path, and I mean, getting people, and it's not necessarily about like working together, like, in an order, because we know we have orders, obviously, that the people there are path working through things. But, the idea of, a lot of people get so sick of, what's going on in mainstream society, all this stuff that's happening. So, I mean, that's just part of the human condition, it seems. But being able to have enough people with enough, resources and understanding to just have our own society, that lives and breathes right next to mainstream people. But, we have our own doctors and jobs and, ways to get the things that we need, I guess, by just kind of knowing who to go to. I mean, do you see that as being something that would be desirable, or?
Yeah, like I was saying, there's a side of me that would love it. But if you're talking the left-hand path, I'm afraid it'll lose its bite when it gets a little too, I get what you're saying. Now, you're not talking about the status quo, but it would be a separate, it would be let's say, a mirror or a shadow society, if you will, right there, just beyond the veil of what the status quo is doing. Like I said, I like the idea. I would be concerned, though, because a lot of people, especially people on the left-hand path, are personal or individual practitioners. And Absolutely. It might be hard. It might be like, trying to...
The herding cats syndrome.
Herding cats.
Yeah.
So that's why we set up the organization as we did. You know what I mean? We're not trying to herd. As we like to say, we are part of a pack, not a herd or a flock, because you can't turn wolves into a flock. So
right on. So do you that was a awesome question, by the way, and this is something that Sorsha's had on her mind a lot lately, and I've seen visions of that happening soon. So if another collapse does, I mean, it seems like it's inevitable, does take place, you will see people breaking away into their own things. I mean, spirits will warn us. They'll give us the foresight. Look, have a bug out bag. Be prepared to live off the land. All this stuff. Get your survival skills up. So I think that our pagan gods are really hip to teaching us these type of skills to prepare us for what could actually happen. So
basically, it would be getting back to who we once were.
Yes.
That's what. And like I was saying, I've said in one of my videos that doing rituals should make you feel like you've gone home, in a sense. You have returned back to the way it was for millennia. I mean, for many, many thousands of years. That's who we were. We were one with all of it, all of the spirits, all of the gods, monsters, angels, demons, whatever you want to call them. We were one with it, like I mentioned earlier about, it's like the weather. It's just who you are and where you are.
A sublime, profound state of remembrance.
It's and if society was to collapse, we might be a little better off than most people. I'll put it that way.
Mm. So do you believe that apotheosis is possible, or is it just a pretentious term thrown around by left-hand pathers to sound cool and sophisticated?
Yeah, to me, that apotheosis, self-deification, sinister illumination, whatever, that is what I'm trying to reach is that state that I had mentioned earlier, that the Agories are working on reaching. And hopefully I've come damn close. I think I'm almost there, that total acceptance. To me, that sums it up. That's where the path is leading. And then while you're there, though, you have to work to stay there.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's not like once you're there, it's like, well, everything's great, It's like, no, you have to work to stay within that mind realm, if you will, that spiritual realm.
For whatever reason, with what Thomas is talking about, I was thinking about when our house burnt down, well, the whole winery burned down, and we had less than 10 minutes to get out. And is that if you've been thrown down into the bottom of the abyss, this is what I hung on to. The only way to go is up. Instead of commiserating, like I saw many people do, and of course I understand why they're doing it, but they were like blaming God and okay, whoever's fault it is, right? You still got to keep going. You got to get out from the bottom of the abyss, because there's no way else to go but up. And that kept me sane. Keep thinking that way. For some reason that's been a safety net for me.
What you guys experienced certainly was a nightside initiatic ordeal.
Sure. Shiva destroys with fire. And like I've been into Shiva for quite a while. Shiva destroys with fire, and then it's like the phoenix. I mean, it depends on how you rise. Mm-hmm. Or are you going to rise, or are you just going to wallow in the ashes?
Or you could say the Klippa or the Cliphotic sphere, Golachab opened up. That's the burners. So that sphere literally manifested in your space. But like getting back to you guys going through that initiatic ordeal, you guys are stronger for it. These ordeals, they toughen us in every respect, every aspect, mentally, physically, spiritually. You just get toughened up by the program that the God. I mean, I think that we are all just marionettes on the strings of the gods. So, but I'd like, as far as apotheosis, there's different levels. You could cite Vlad Tepes, Elizabeth Bathory, Rasputin, C.G.
Vlad who?
Vlad Tepes. Vlad the Impaler.
See the shirt?
Okay. I was trying to make out who it was earlier, but fuck yeah. But yeah, C.G. Jung, there's psychoanalysts that worship the ground that guy walked on. So there's definitely different levels of apotheosis. Unfortunately, we don't get to fully understand the level that we've achieved until after we die. So the act of assuming the God form, is this an exercise in ego dissolution or ego distillation or glorification? Like invoking Lucifer, to let that supreme personality go. That's like an act of the supreme personality comes into you. You are fully aware as Lucifer. To let that personality go is an act of sacrifice and ego dissolution. Do you think assuming the God form is a substantial exercise in dissolution or the glorification of the ego? Is the question.
Wow. I think you should, on this path, retain the ego to a degree. It's the analogy that I've given is taking a water balloon and putting it in a tub of water and popping it. That's that you've lost all substance of who you are. You know what I mean? I think, okay, now the way I see it, to achieve pure, let's say to become the ipsissimus, if you will, the above the gods, the objective is to become one with the deepest parts of the collective unconscious, if you want to look at it from a Jungian perspective, where your ego is still intact, but you have reached the highest of the highs, if you will. Because if you've just completely lost, if you've dissolved into it, whatever it is, then what is being deified? You know what I mean? There's nothing to be deified. You are one with the cosmos and whatever, you know, the new age mumbo jumbo. You want to retain the ego, but fully understand what the ego is, who you are. Because too many people get into this and they don't have a clue who the fuck they are. Right. So why are you going to try to deify a stranger, if you will?
Well, it's an actual exercise to assume the God form when you're invoking.
Oh, sure.
You're saying the names. You're saying all the barbarous sounds, but there's some people that get so wrapped up in that role and that personality comes on them, they don't let it go. They literally believe that they are Samael or Lilith, or you can name the archdevil, and they completely lose it. So the exercise of assuming the God form, it's supposed to kind of let your ego melt into the nothingness, to the void.
Sure, I can see doing that temporarily. You know what I mean? For the sake of, there are times when you want to get lost. And I think that's healthy. But not at the end of your path, let's say. You know what I mean? You want to retain that spark of who you are. Because that's what's being deified.
Good answer. Okay. I totally understand. So upon Mahasamadhi, or reunification with the Godhead, do you believe the personality is obliterated and the spirit recycled? Or upon ascension, the personality is logged, retained, and added to the distinction of the architect program or the Godhead? So basically when you die, or you realize, the Mahasamadhi, you reunify.
I don't know fully. I would like to think that it's like getting back into the Jungian idea of the collective unconscious. Now, he saw the collective unconscious as, in a sense, a place where the currents originate, and the currents have different masks for different societies. You know what I mean? Hence the different names for the gods, monsters, angels, demons, so on and so forth. But there's the same energies, the same forces, that radiate out. And possibly that's where we all originated, was in there. And we are, in a sense, on this realm that we now exist within, is just like it's the mucus tension surface of a bubble. And that's what we're on. That's what this is. When it's reality. There's certain laws that no matter how hard we try, we can't break. I'm not going to attempt to step off a 10-story building and expect to levitate, fly, whatever. There are still strict laws while we are here. But then when you get down into the collective unconscious, then that's a different story. And do we become, basically, do we retain our essence, or do we become one with a greater source? I don't know. I don't fully know. What I do know is I exist now, and I want to be at the maximum state I can possibly be in now, in this existence.
Amen.
So I am into the carnal, if you will, carnal reality, this, whatever this is. I'm not too worried about what comes later. I want what's best for me here, while I'm still within this three-dimensional realm. And hence bringing up the Agori and that sense of acceptance with existence, that full acceptance of the existence, the good, the bad, and the ugly. That's what I'm striving for right now. So I don't know, to be dead honest with you. I don't know. A lot of people would like to believe one thing or another, but what you want to be true and what is factual are very often two different things. So
Right. So what do you think, Lisa? There is no wrong answer. This is all just theoretical speculation on our part at this point. But
Okay, so go back to your question again.
basically, this what happens after death.
Okay, all right.
What
I don't know. I have no idea. I did hear, I don't know if you're familiar with Eris Hagar, has a YouTube channel. And he was talking about, I don't want to.
he does Norse mythology
Yeah.
and Norse traditions. He's an archaeologist.
And he finds that.
Thinker and pagan too, by the way.
Yeah. But he finds that many people are life deniers. If all the goals in their life are just to be good enough to go to heaven or what else,
Nirvana, whatever.
Nirvana, yeah, and not pay enough attention to making this life worth it. Try, make mistakes, try again. And that's where I'm at. That's how I do. That's my point of view on this. I mean, I look to, okay, let's say I like Odin because he teaches me things in terms of, you got to sacrifice yourself to, gain things. Knowledge, yeah.
You have to make sacrifices.
Yeah. So that's my outlook on it.
I love the fact that you guys both are, like, you're self-aware enough, and humble enough to be able to say, I don't know for sure, because so many people would get on here and just, maybe give a very interesting explanation of what they believe. And belief is fascinating. I mean, people can believe whatever, but it's okay to get comfortable. And I think more occultists should take take your example of being okay and at peace with saying, you know what, I don't know. It is a mystery. And, I don't have to get so wrapped up that I forget to live this life in favor of what we don't know for sure.
Exactly.
Because
she did not
crossed over
yet. She did not pretend like she knew. Like that's when
you insult
people's intelligence. Yeah.
I wish more people would be able to just be like, it's okay. I don't know. I don't have to have, all the answers for all the people. I can just, I have some thoughts and theories and things that might make sense to me, but I cannot say, yes, 100%, this is the truth, because it's not about, your truth might be different from someone else's truth or whatever. I mean, we don't know because we're still in the physical plane. So,
right. Yeah.
Speculation.
Yeah. That's the hallmark of an authentic person. So thank you for that. In Kabbalah, the archdevils of the infernal divine are referred to as divine waste, or explained away as the afterbirth of creation, or mistakes of God, excrement of God. Do you believe this is slander by the Hebrews so that we never foster a relationship with our beautiful pagan gods? Or do you believe there's actually something to what they describe as divine waste?
The former. Yeah, that was the trend. I mean, as the ancient Israelites, or whatever you want to call them at the time, would march along and they would take over these city states and so on and so forth, the gods became demons. because no, we got our God. This was El or Yahweh, and then they were combined into one. And yeah, him. He's the those are demons. Those aren't gods. And in a sense, I find the demons very intriguing, because what are you invoking? You're invoking gods, in most cases. Look at Lilith. What was Lilith? Who was she originally? She was a goddess. She was, the goddess of, well, some theories, the ancient Canaanite goddess and so on and so forth. She initially represented Earth. She was the mother, and so on and so forth. And she was demonized for distinctly that because Yahweh was in charge. You couldn't have any other above Yahweh, even though originally their pantheon, the Hebrew pantheon, they had a pantheon. They had multiple gods, but then they narrowed it down to the one.
Even I'm sorry,
no, go ahead.
Even in the Hebrew myth, Lilith is a sublime feminine role model, because
Sure.
in the myth, she would not lay below, and she pronounced the name of God, she transformed, and she hid near the Red Sea, something like that. And the Adam, being the simp that he was, prayed to Yahweh and said, "The wife that you created for me transformed and flew away." And Yahweh sent 3 angels, Sanangaloth, and I don't remember their names right now, but those angels went and tracked down Lilith. And the best that those angels were able to do was negotiate with her.
Yeah.
Lilith made a deal with them. Okay, if they make amulets with my name on it, I'll leave their children alone. She wasn't saying she was attacking all children, the children of your God, your people's children. That she specifically said that, and the angels could only negotiate with her. They were sent there to forcefully return her to Adam, and she was like, "Fuck that! No, fight me." And they had to make a deal. And sorry, Adam, we'll create a new one out of your freaking rib, or whatever the myth was. But yeah, a fantastic role model for females all the way around.
Without a doubt. And also the objective in one should be, because we all have a Lilith aspect in us, the Jungian anime, animus, so on and so forth. Male, female, it doesn't matter. We all have that Lilith aspect in us. And we want to return Lilith to the Godhead, if you will. And you can use like the chakra system to work, let's say, work her up, to make, in a sense, join her with Shiva, if you will. And I've made a couple of videos on Lilith, and mixing the Hindu with the ancient Middle Eastern and so on, and combining, in a sense, like I was saying, the chakra system, returning the goddess to who she was, in a sense. And you should do it within yourself too.
Yeah, the Ida and Pingala, the 2 dragons at your root, or between your anus and the base of your spine, when you merge the male and female energies, Lilith is referred to as that dragon that sits in the infernal regions near your root. She's called Tanansum. And when it's mixed with the male energy, it's a blind dragon. So she has no sight when she's in the infernal regions. But when it's mixed and unified with the male energies, it gains sight and works its way up to the crown. You're illuminated, and the illusion disappears.
Exactly. The serpent in the tree, the same symbolism as the serpent in the tree, the garden, and so on and so forth. Yeah, that's all. Yes, it's all the same within collective, within comparative mythology, if you will.
Absolutely. I don't want to take your guys' whole evening. I have one more question for you guys.
Sure.
So the offices, ranks, and description and of the powers of some of the spirit lists in, say, the Red Dragon, Grand Grimoire, the Goetia, are these actual dormant potentials that exist within the human psyche, or are they, you know, actual powers of spirits, like in a theistic sense?
It's the okay, getting to the archetypes within the collective unconscious, they are greater than us. All right. And like I was mentioned earlier, they have many masks, many faces.
So you know how Paimon teaches all liberal arts, teaches
right.
like, yeah, are those powers that exist dormant within our psyche that we can awaken when we invoke the spirit, or are they external sentient personalities living in the liminal spaces of existence, or both?
They're both, in a sense. They're both, because it's all about, okay, it's all about consciousness. Okay, that's Brahman, you know, in the Hindu tradition. That is consciousness, and it's all about consciousness, because without it, what do you have? You have nothing. And as aspects of consciousness and aspects of the collective unconscious, they are aspects, energies, currents, whatever, that are greater than we are, in a sense. So in that way, they're kind of, that gets into this, you can call it the theistic aspect. Something's going on with our neighbors, but anyway. Yeah, so then you would, that would fall within, let's say, in some ways, a theistic realm. But at the same time, it's all about consciousness. So it's a part of who we are. Hence the paradox.
Right. So they say that the 72 demons of the Goetia and the 72 angels of the Shem HaMephorash, adding up to the 144, they say that we have 144,000 crystalline sand-like particles on our pineal gland. So each spirit represents one of the crystalline particles that when you invoke it, that particle begins to fire and illuminate with a violet black light. And that's, I don't know if you've ever taken any hallucinogens, but you'll see something in the corner of your eye that looks like a strobe light. That's kind of animates the colors and the patterns that you see. So when you invoke these spirits, that part of your pineal gland becomes active and allows these dormant potentials to become active within your psyche. You share your experience with that, your life experience, your actual experience with that spirit. You share your food with it. You invoke it while you have sex. You share it with the spirit. You offer it as sacrifice, and that spirit lends to you its knowledge, its wisdom, its power. So yeah, I'd have to agree with you. They're definitely external and internal, both part of consciousness. The force and the form, the Shakti and the Shiva, if you will. So
exactly. Perfect. You said it.
Yeah, you did say it.
Thomas and Lisa, thank you kindly for joining us. This has been
this is great.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
I loved it. I would love to have you guys back in a few months if you agree with it. I love talking to you guys. I think you guys are great. Both of you guys are two of my favorite people, like role models. I watch your videos all the time, and
wow.
I'm deeply honored that you came on and chatted with us tonight. Thank you kindly.
Thank you very much for having us. This was a lot of fun.
All right,
you're only the second Sorsha I've ever known.
Really?
Yeah.
So, Sorsha, thank you for joining me.
Always
And
fun.
Sorsha,
Thank
here
you.
more. So we just added Sorsha to our team, the Legion of Lilith team. So her, I, and Demetrius. Demetrius couldn't make it because he lives in France. It's probably like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning where he's at right now. So he apologized that he couldn't make it, but I was not missing this for the world. But thanks again for joining us. Where can the people find you?
Our website, sectofthehorngod.com. Also, my YouTube channel, Thomas LeRoy. Also, we're on Facebook, Sect of the Horn God Facebook. We also have a Sect of the Horn God Facebook group too. So yeah, and I'm on Instagram. I don't know what the hell I'm doing on Instagram, but I'm on there too. So you can find the Thomas LeRoy on Instagram.
Yeah, and our website is the Sect of the Horn God.
The Sect of the
Yeah.
Horn. We emphasize the because somebody bought up the rights to Sect of the Horn God. So I emphasize
Good.
the.
It's
So
a
I always
good
capitalize the T and the. So
It's an awesome name. What do you expect? So, but all that stuff will be in the description, so the people will be able to seek you out for a formal education if possible, or just to reach out and gain some of your wisdom. So thanks again, and have a great night, guys.
You too.
Okay,
Thank
you also.
Thank you guys.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.